Kia ora Aotearoa, welcome whānau to the War on News, your weekly sacred cow slaughtering assault on current affairs, beamed live from the palatial Stratus news bunker, buried deep beneath the heart of the Greyland Republic. If this show was the Reader's Digest 100 Most Trusted New Zealanders list and People's Revolutionary Hero and trade union boss Matt McCartan appeared as number 19 on that list, one would be suspicious that the Matrix had just hiccuped. In tonight's political media crimes against reason kill zone, Mr. Magoo from South Canterbury Finance faces 50 charges by Serious Fraud Office. Hopes of O.J. Simpson-like real-time TV car chase in his old V-dub are fading. You're 24 and National want to pay you $8 an hour. Welcome to change, meaning loose change. Paula Bennett admitting benefit reform is scary is like your dentist assuring you that this is going to hurt. Plus this week's Sex and the Super City, Wanko the Week, and the Barack Obama People's Hero of the Week Award. Leading the War on News this week, brothers and sisters, Māori Party co-leader Tariana Turia bizarrely admitted in a 20-minute interview that her own candidate in the by-election was a lovely man who didn't understand politics. Tariana later claimed she had her words misinterpreted because it's very easy to misinterpret our candidate as a joke candidate, vote for Kelvin, we'd do anything to kill Hone, isn't it? When you publicly admit in an interview that your clearly out of his depth candidate doesn't understand the job you are asking him to do, it's a little like appointing Charlie Sheen as the Surgeon General. Why vote for someone who the party co-leader admits doesn't understand politics? Why not ask mechanics to do open heart surgery or the Labour Party to run an effective political opposition? Of the furore her comments created, Tariana says people should stop over-analysing and reading far too much into this. In the words of Paula Bennett, yeah, nah. When the co-leader of a party says her candidate doesn't understand politics, one invites nothing other than analysing and reading into it. To think otherwise suggests that it is actually Tariana that doesn't, in fact, understand politics. Brothers and sisters, Federated Farmers have spewed forth anger at Phil Goth's description of them this week as the National Party in gumboots. Their foul outrage is as credible as the Witch King of the Nazgul taking offence at being called a spooky guy with a sword. Federated Farmers are so right-wing, they make Genghis Khan look like a Green Party voting vegan. That they are trying to claim they are apolitical is hilarious when their former president, Charlie Peterson, described the environmental movement as a war against humanity. That's like writing off the UN because they're too gay. How close is Federated Farmers to National? Here's a picture of Bill English, the finance minister, and here's a picture of Connor English, the Federated Farmers Chief Executive, and this is their sister, Sarah English. That's 7 generations of South Island inbreeding. Now, I don't want to put too fine a point on it, but Bill and Connor kind of look related. And seeing as Bill has just green-lighted a lignite plant in his own electorate that will provide cheap, dirty, climate change generating energy to power his brother Connor's farming industry, this has gone beyond you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours, to a full body massage with reflexology. The National Party are the political arm of the Federated Farmers, who all benefit from paying a mere $1,500 per year in tax, and pretending they are not is like the unions pretending they support Don Brash's policy to legalise slavery. Brothers and sisters, as dodgy as loans via text message, New Zealand tattooist S. Victor Whitmore has settled a lawsuit regarding breach of copyright against Warner Brothers for a Māori designed tattoo that was used in The Hangover Part 2. How a Pakeha tattooist manages to tattoo an African American with what he considers a Māori design and then have the audacity to demand intellectual property from Warner Brothers is a little like Colonel Sanders threatening to sue your lower intestine for digesting his 11 secret herbs and spices without express permission from KFC. A Pākehā taking cultural intellectual property from Māori and then demanding payment from American corporations for that very same cultural intellectual property without any flicker of irony makes the attempt of using a taniwha to hold up the rail loop look like a serious hunt for a supernatural monster. To the headlines, whānau. Mr Magoo from South Canterbury Finance faces 50 charges by Serious Fraud Office. Hopes of O.J. Simpson-like real-time TV car chase and his old V-dub are fading. The Serious Fraud Office laid 50 charges against Mr Magoo from South Canterbury Finance this week, despite the continued claim of innocence from his fanatical supporters. So let's get this straight. Mr Magoo, who didn't bother with silly old paperwork, embarked on risky deals once he knew we would all pay for them, and then screwed it all up, costing us $1.7 billion. And we went through all this bullshit to prop up South Islanders' romanticised view of themselves as humble, modest living, salt of the earth types. Since when the bloody hell did we bail out self-imposed myths? I'm sure Mr Magoo is a nice chap, and those South Islanders who have tied their sense of identity directly into his uncomplicated ways are all pleasant people, but we don't have $1.7 billion to piss against the wall so that South Islanders can feel chipper about themselves. Where the living hell was the due diligence here, folks? How could I keep them numbers all up in me head be considered a financial report? Wouldn't a group hug and some session time with Dr. Phil and Oprah to prop up mainlanders' self-esteem have been a hell of a lot cheaper than allowing Mr Magoo to drive his cheap little car and most of the wealth of the South Island off a bloody cliff? How is a $1.7 billion bailout to Mr Magoo anything other than politically connected crony capitalism? Whānau, this was prudent ass-kissing for the wealthy wankers who jumped in to milk the system for as much as they could. We had to bail out National's well-connected money mates for the national interest because Lord knows if well-connected National Party chums are out of pocket, it's the most pressing issue that needs to be passed with as little scrutiny as possible. Whānau, I'm not sure how propping up a mythical and romanticised vision of Mr Magoo that so many South Islanders tied themselves to for the sum of $1.7 billion helps the rest of New Zealand who are bleeding because of the global economic recession. But then again, I can't see why corporate welfare trumps social welfare either. Moving on with headlines, whānau. You're 24 and National want to pay you $8 an hour. Welcome to change, meaning loose change. So the National Party's solution to the economic incompetence they have shown by rising GST to subsidise a tax cut for the rich, which led to a $1 billion hole in tax take as the revenue base shrank, is to bring back youth rates and to redefine youth as anyone under 24. The research clearly shows that when we abolished youth rates and introduced minimum wage, that there was no negative impact on job creation. We have 19.4% of people aged 15 to 24 unemployed right now. The last time it was this high was 1992. That's right, the year of Jump by Chris Cross, Baby Got Back by Sir Mix-a-Lot, and The End of the Road by Boyz II Men depressingly dominated the music charts the last time youth unemployment was this bad. How exploiting this level of unemployment by reintroducing youth wages while telling young adults that they're only worth $8 an hour is supposed to generate jobs makes about as much sense as selling off half our assets to merely pay 7 months' worth of debt. Nothing will send young New Zealanders overseas faster than dropping the wage down to $8 an hour. And why on earth would they come back to such youth wages? The short-sighted patsy to the employers of New Zealand suggests that National believe the election is so in the bag that John Key could punch a puppy in the face live on close-up and the sleepy hobbits of New Zealand would criticise the puppy for flinching. Moving on with the headlines, whānau. Paula Bennett admitting benefit reform is scary is like your dentist assuring you that this is going to hurt. Paula Bennett proved she has all the bedside manner of a brain-eating zombie this week by admitting that the crippling of the welfare state would in fact be scary for beneficiaries. Yes, after last month's benefit numbers that showed 1,000 were made ineligible and 2,400 hadn't completed the purposely dense reapplication process, I imagine the looming form of the princess of yeah nah to amputate more state assistance would put the shits up society's most vulnerable, and therein lies the problem. We know from the last great pruning back of the public services in the 1990s that our suicide rate tripled. We can't pretend to not know what the social collateral damage is because we've walked this path once before. We are going to attempt to force back to work in a high unemployment environment 100,000 solo mothers, disabled and mentally unwell people by threatening them with their benefit. What impact is that kind of stress going to have on those who are already on the edge? Look at the spike in violence in Christchurch after the shock they've had. Look at the spike in depression felt by everyone trying to get through the recession. Hell, Hubbard has people concerned about his welfare and he's cost us all $1.7 billion. How come the 11,000 children of beneficiaries directly targeted by these initial cutbacks receive nothing more than an admission by their minister that the stick over carrot approach is going to be scary? National's message to the most vulnerable is simple. Close your eyes and think of Paula. How reassuring. Whānau, are you feeling sexy? It's Sex in the Super City time. Last week, the Auckland Council wimped out and decided not to charge brothel developers and humanitarians of the year, the Chow brothers, over the destruction of the historic Palace Hotel after it accidentally fell over after the Chows accidentally knocked out the supports so that they can accidentally build a multi-storied battery cage sex farm. These are the same Chow brothers who in 2006 were fined $14,000 for attacking a protected kowhai tree with a chainsaw, and of course this year they accidentally on purpose destroyed another historic building in Wellington, again for the expansion of their multi-storied battery cage sex farms, where they are so mean-spirited and tight that they tax their female employees for condoms, lube and towel usage. Not throwing in the condoms, lube and towels as a brothel owner is like charging cutlery fees at a restaurant with an additional cost to ensure the chef has washed his hands after the toilet. Since when did brothel owners with a history of destroying protected New Zealand heritage get more protection than the buildings they destroy? Whānau, let's hand out this week's Wanko of the Week award. This week's Wanko of the Week, brothers and sisters, has to go to an investigation into what role synthetic cannabis may have played in a car crash that claimed the life of a teenager. With all due respect, what? A terrible loss of life for a teenager, but the mere suggestion that chronic is involved and we need an investigation, do we? Look, I have no time for this chronic crap. If I want to smoke something, it sure as bloody hell won't be some weird synthetic crap. But what I find amusing is the speed with which chronic hysteria can suddenly dominate media attention because of one possible death, when we know hundreds are dying from booze and cars. One death from chronic and we need to ban something. Thousands are being injured and killed because of booze, and apparently we can't do a bloody thing because this government has spent so much political capital on building the nanny state myth into a bogeyman, meaning they are unable to implement any social policy for fear of stirring the political correctness Frankenstein monster they've spent so much time building up. If we can move so quickly to restrict chronic because of one possible death on the roads, then this government's in action on getting booze out of supermarkets, banning booze advertising, and lowering the blood alcohol levels now is just pure hypocrisy. New Zealanders who believe that raising the drinking age will solve our nation's cultural addiction to booze may as well sweep domestic violence, sexual assaults, and suicide under the cultural carpet of denial while we're at it. Brothers and sisters, let's hand out this week's Barack Obama People's Hair of the Week Award. Brothers and sisters, this week's Barack Obama People's Hair of the Week Award has to go to all of us, with findings from the international program on the state of the ocean that showed our oceans are on the brink of an unprecedented environmental catastrophe because of global warming, overfishing and untempered pollution of the planet's seas. We, as a species, are about to induce a mass extinction, which normally requires a supervolcano, asteroid strike, or climate flip events that take millennia to build up. There is nothing as mercilessly efficient as our greed and utter lack of foresight as a species. And for those who still claim climate change is a Greenpeace myth and that there is no scientific proof of global warming, you are part of the problem. And my humble suggestion is that we start shooting you first. That's it for tonight, folks. Don't forget Citizen A plays Friday, 7:30 p.m, Freeview 21 and Sky 89. Follow me on my Citizen Bomber Twitter and Facebook site. It has all the shows posted up online and allows you to befriend other like-minded news citizens for romantic news moments. Kia ora, ladies and gentlemen. You stay classy, Aotearoa. Good night.